Welcome to the Unfiltered Tea with Evie podcast, where personal brands and service providers come for honest, anti-sleaze marketing advice that actually works. I'm Evie Tavares, founder of Evie Tavares Branding, and if you're tired of manipulative tactics, sleazy marketing strategies, and feeling like you're the only one who doesn't have your business all together, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we're diving into copywriting, personal branding strategy, business mindset, and balancing business with kids and real life. I'll be bringing in some epic guests, including business experts, to share their insights and real experiences in life and business. You can expect real life stories, tactical tips, and the occasional spicy Evie moment, all served up with your morning cup of tea. So grab your tea, get cozy, and let's get into it. Okay, we're doing this. I'm freaking out a little bit on the inside, but I am so excited to welcome you to the first episode of the Unfiltered Tea with Evie podcast. This is a dream I've had since lunch. No, I'm just kidding. There's going to be a lot of office references in here, but this is something that has kind of been in my mind for probably upwards of a year. I spent a lot of 2025 guesting on podcasts, and every time I was done, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. I want to do more of this. And it finally hit me to just be like, okay, you're ready. It's time to start your podcast. So here we are. I want to start this off with a little bit of an introduction to me, who I am, how I got here. So to get started, if you don't know me already, I am Evie Tavares. No relation to John Tavares, the hockey player, unfortunately. I wish I did, because Leafs tickets are very expensive and that would be so much fun, but I am not. I am the founder and owner of Evie Tavares Branding, and I started my business in 2022. So I have just passed 3 years, which I'm super pumped about. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the backstory on how I got into owning a business, because I feel like it's something that I had no business doing. We're just going to go back. So let me get started here. I started in banking as soon as I finished high school. I started working at Bank of Montreal, and then when I got married, I transitioned over to a credit union, and I had been at the credit union I was at for about 10 years. And I started having babies. So I had my first baby in 2019, November 2019. As you know, 2020 was a crazy year, navigating pandemic, but also I had postpartum OCD and anxiety. So by the time my 1-year maternity leave was up, I was like, I'm ready. Please get me back to work. Get me out of the house. I need to be around people. Like, it was an easy transition to go back to work. And then I was back at work for probably like 6 months to a year before I got pregnant with my second baby. And the second time around, I had my second baby in January 2022. Why am I so bad at these years right now? Okay, yeah. It was January 2022. And this time around, I took 18 months off, because in Canada, you can take 12 to 18 months and it's amazing. But anyway, I took 18 months. We got to about October of that first year off, and I was like, I don't want to go back. Like, even when I had gone back in between my two daughters, it was okay, but I just could sense that becoming a mom had kind of changed something. I wanted to have the freedom to be with my kids, to be able to just take a day to be with them, to be able to go to the park with them. I was missing out on like beach trips with my other mom friends, and then when my daughter would get sick, it was like trying to call in sick because you can't get a babysitter, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So when it was getting closer and closer to coming back after my second baby, I just started panicking, and I was like, I cannot do this forever. Like, this is not it for me. And I remember just sitting in the dark in her room, as one does, in the middle of the night when you're a new mom and you're breastfeeding and you're just sitting there rocking your baby. You're just going through all these crazy thoughts. And all of a sudden, I had this thought pop into my head. I had been doing like dabbling in family photography for a number of years, but it was more just like family and friends. Evie, can you take our pictures? Like, a lot of it wasn't paid. It was like very low key. I had like a hobby photography Instagram, Teacup and Saucer. If any of you were around back then Thank you for being here today still. And I was just sitting there in the dark and I was like, people have like successful photography businesses that is just that's what they do. They take pictures. And I'm like, I could be one of those people. Why couldn't I be one of those people? And that was when the light bulb really went off in my head. I was like, holy crap, like what's actually stopping me from doing that? I can do this. So I talked it over with my husband, who from this very early day one has been incredibly supportive. And it wasn't a matter of like, okay, yeah, you can do this and you can quit your job. No, it was like, you can build this, and if it works, which we're confident it will, but if it works, then we can talk. Because my income was supporting the household. I wasn't the main income, but my income does help to support the household. So it was important that we weren't just, losing that. So anyway, I posted on Teacup and Saucer and I said, I am starting to do photography and like actually get paid for it. So family photography was kind of what I advertised at the start. It was like I took some of the pictures from my friends' photo shoots and like stuff that I had done for free and shared that. And then I really dove into the business side of things because I knew in order to grow a successful photography business, I needed to learn a lot about business and marketing. So again, we're sitting in the dark with my baby in the middle of the night. And I would bring my AirPods in with me when I went to go feed her. I would pop them in and I would just listen to podcasts. And I think it kept me a little bit sane in those times, but I also learned so much. Like there was so much value in all of those, and I'm so incredibly thankful. I still remember the original podcast that I listened to. So I learned a lot about the photography business and actually starting a business. So I really took the time and the effort to learn about the business side of things. How do you start a business? How do you get clients? Like all that kind of thing. And there was one particular night that somebody had brought on a guest who was a brand photographer from British Columbia. And I had never heard of brand photography, but the way that they described it, the way that they described like their experience, their client experience, the way that they went about with their approach for brand photography, I was like, that sounds amazing. Like, how cool would it be to just go take pictures of businesses? That sounds pretty awesome to me. That was when I went down the brand photography hole of podcasts and got really specific on the type of photography that I wanted to learn, how to build a really great customer experience. The first thing I did, this is probably a little bit controversial, but actually the first thing I did was I posted on my Instagram and my Facebook and I said, I am starting to take photos for businesses and I need a handful of businesses, 5 businesses who are willing to kind of let me come work with them for free and I'll give you the photos, but I need your honest feedback on the process and like all of this. And so I did. I got 5 businesses that I worked with and I really focused on what I needed to improve in my own skills and also in how I was running the business. So couple of things that I learned from that was, one, I needed to learn how to pose people because posing people for brand photography is different from posing families for family photography. So that was number 1 on the list, was you need to get better at posing. And that came with practice, that came with time, but that also came with like some investment and like learning from people who specialize in that or who really emphasize on that. The other thing that I really focused on was building out my systems. So I knew I liked to go in with a plan and that was the way that I was going to get the best photos. The people who I worked with who filled out the questionnaire and did like the planning and the mood board and everything with me had the better pictures and the shoot went better. So I was like, okay, that's a very important piece of the puzzle. The other thing that I worked on was building contracts and stuff, making sure that from the very beginning, everything was very official. Again, this was all stuff that I learned for free from podcasts, got very scrappy, got like every freebie you could possibly find, and yeah, just was very scrappy. Again, I was on maternity leave for 18 months. There wasn't very much money coming in on my side of things, and I had to be super scrappy in the beginning of how to build it. So I started building this business in brand photography, and when I went back to work, it was June of 2023, I had to go back to work. And by that point, I had built all my systems. Like I was ready to run the business alongside my part-time job, alongside being a mom. Sounds a little crazy now, but it worked. So I went back to work And that just made me realize even more how much I needed to grow this thing. So I pushed hard, and the biggest thing that I focused on was my own marketing. So I took, again, a couple like cheaper courses, very affordable courses that taught me a lot about personal branding and how to show up on Instagram, how to use social media to like market yourself, and how it's all very much around just staying top of mind and sharing what you're doing. So that's something that I've done since the very beginning, and it's something that I continue to do because it works so well. And letting people get to know you on a personal level, I think, just makes a world of difference. So that's what I've always focused on. So I was working part-time, I was continuing to grow my business, learning about marketing, doing all the things. And then I learned about copywriting, and I was like, what is copywriting? I'm going to be honest, I'm a copywriter. I didn't know what copywriting was. And then I learned that it's writing for marketing. So you're writing to persuade people to take a certain action, you're writing the words that sell for people. And another back part of my story is growing up, I was writing stories constantly. I was always writing. And when I kind of discovered copywriting, I was like, holy crap, like that, you can get paid for that. Like that's really cool. So it was another one of those kind of aha moments of, I want to really learn this skill now, and I want to add this to what I'm doing. So that's exactly what I did. I had like very strong writing foundations, and I knew that I was a strong writer. So it was more just learning the skills specific to copywriting and how to use like the psychological triggers and buyer journeys and map out that whole strategy was what I really focused on learning then over the next little while. So then I could eventually add copywriting to my services. So that was how it came to be both brand photography and copywriting. And even still, it's like pretty 50-50 on what I'm doing. There's been times where I've tried to just go in on the copywriting because I love photography, but I also love writing. And I think I felt pressure to have one thing, to be one thing, to offer people one thing. But what I've kind of come to realize is that I'm still offering people one thing. And that one thing is that I help you to show up and get visibility with your business in a way that makes you feel good and confident and like you are being yourself. And whether that's in photos or in writing, that's what I'm helping you to accomplish. So that's what I've really zeroed in on over the last little while, and it's been working really well. So I was back to work in June 2023. And I got to a point in the spring of 2024. My business was already growing. I was working, during nap time on my days off. I was working on the weekends when my husband wasn't working. I was working in the evenings when the girls went to sleep. I was working in the mornings, like burning the candle at both ends, but just loving every minute of it. And it got to the point where I was like, I cannot book another call with a potential client because I do not have time. I cannot book another shoot to make money because I do not have time. And I finally looked at my husband. I was like, here's what I've brought in financially with the business. Here's what I could bring in if I had this extra time. And I cannot go any further of growing the business while I'm still working part-time. And so we looked everything over together, and it was 100% a decision made together. But ultimately, yeah, it was time to quit. And it was the best feeling ever because, again, I'd been at the credit union, the same place. I worked with most of the same people for 10 years. And I'd never run a business. I didn't go to college or university. So it was like, who am I to be quitting my job and making my own business? This doesn't make any sense. But it did, and it worked. So I ended up quitting in April of 2024, and I have not looked back since. Even with the up and down of entrepreneurship, it's not been easy by any means, but I feel like I've never thought about going back. And it's not that I burned the bridge. It's not that I can't go back. I didn't need to do that. But it's just, there's no way that I'm not making this work. And that's always been my mindset. So even when it is hard, you pick yourself up, you keep going, you keep walking, you take that next step to get back into it. And that's just something that I've always done. And now we just passed 3 years. So it's 3 years total in business, which is wild, and 1.5 years, I think, of just working for myself. And the fact that I get to drop my daughter off at school every day, I get to pick her up from school every day, I get to go on her field trips without asking for permission or like having to book time off. We are planning a trip to Portugal, and it's like, oh, I need to check with my boss if I can have 2 weeks off. She says yes because it's me. I'm my boss. And to me, that is just, you can't trade that for anything in the world. That to me is just the coolest thing. So ultimately, we've gotten to a point where it feels really good, and the business feels really good. And I know that there's always growth that happens, and I'm so excited to see what the next year brings. But I'm also so incredibly proud of how far I've come, how well it's gone, and I'm going to do a whole episode on what's really contributed to that as well. But this is more just about the origin story and how we got here. So that's a little bit of the backstory. As far as this podcast, I just feel like I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about my skill set with photography, copywriting, marketing, strategy, all those things. And I feel like I'm ready to talk about it. I feel like I'm ready to kind of find my voice in that and share more of that. And so this just seemed like a really good way to do it. So I am super excited for what's coming. This is just the beginning, and there's already so many good things planned, so many guests that I either have already invited and have said yes, or plan to invite that are going to just bring a ton of value. And I think my biggest thing with this is I want it to be unfiltered. So even for this, I didn't have a script. I didn't make an outline. Maybe I should have, but I just want it to be real, and I want it to be like real stories, real conversations, where we can encourage you to also be yourself, because I think that's such a huge thing now, is to try to just be yourself, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make you stand out, especially in 2026. Like, people have been saying it's the year of personal brands, and I think that's, contributed by AI and all these other things. But ultimately, the more that you can feel confident in exactly who you are and showing up for your business, that's going to really propel you into having that success in your business. There is one thing that I am going to do with guests, and that is rapid fire questions. I will give myself a taste of my own medicine by doing it here for the first time as well. So, rapid fire. Favorite beverage for the end of a long workday? Ooh, that's a tough one, actually, because if it's a weekday, then I would say a poppy with ice in a wine glass to make it fancy. If it's a Friday, then we're talking like tequila fresca, probably with some ice. I try not to drink during the week. Sometimes, it happens, but that's definitely my go-to on a Friday, is just some nice tequila fresca. One book that changed your business. Honestly, the first business books that I really read was How Are You Really by Jenna Kutcher and 2 Weeks Notice. Those were the first quotation mark business books that I read, and I just feel like they were very approachable. They were very doable. Like, they made me feel seen for where I was at in that point of business. So those were probably the books that I would say changed my business. A more recent one that I will say is, I'm going to give my friend a shout out here, Carly Ottaway, and her book Coming Home. Not only is the book incredible, but just being able to watch Carly go through that journey. I've known Carly for a couple years now, I'd say, which I'll get into more of that later, kind of how we met and everything, because that's really incredible too. But from when I met her to now she is a best-selling author, seeing that journey has been incredibly inspiring. I think it's called like proof of possibility. And I think that's exactly what it is she's kind of shown what's possible, kind of how she's shaped her business and everything. She's also a mom of young kids. So she's someone that I really look up to. So I would say that her book was amazing and changed my business, but also her as an author and her doing that has also changed my business and how I see the opportunities that are coming up. What's your go-to productivity hack? So for me, that would be putting my phone away, because I am 100% guilty of picking it up randomly and scrolling and wasting a bunch of time. So I have my phone on Do Not Disturb constantly. 24/7, it's on Do Not Disturb, unless I'm expecting a call, or if I'm like leaving it on the table and I want to be able to hear somebody calling me or whatever, then I'll turn it on. But most of the day, there's the only person who can get through my Do Not Disturb. My husband is the only one who can get through the Do Not Disturb, as you can tell from him calling me right now. Yeah, so I would say having that on, but then also I have an app called ClearSpace, and it has a block on my Instagram that's very hard to get around. And it's more than just like the time thing on your phone where you can hit like 15 minutes, 1 more hour, whatever. It's very difficult to get around. But it also lets me put like open windows. So there's like this time I can go on, but they're very specific times. So like after school drop off, I've got like a little chunk of time there. After school pickup, I've got like half an hour there if I want to go on a post or whatever. And then in the evening after the girls are in bed. But even that one I find sometimes I don't really do, because we'll be watching Survivor or I'll be reading. Like by that point in the night, sometimes I really don't even want to go on Instagram. So just being aware, I would say, of what it is that stops me from being productive, and then taking steps to make sure that those things are a lot harder to do. Okay, the next rapid fire question. Best business advice you've ever received? Ooh. I've received a lot of business advice, and I love business advice. So there's a lot. Something that I have on my board. Actually, I think I'm going to share two with you, because I think there's two. So the first one, I used to think to yourself when I'd get like a new client that was like a bigger project, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm like, no, you got to fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it is what I felt like I did, and it worked. But then I was at an event and somebody said, fake it till you make it should actually be act it till you are it. And I don't remember who said it. If you know who it is, send me a message and I'll make sure to put it in the notes. But that to me was huge, because that described so much better what it was, because I feel like I wasn't faking it. It was, I'm going to step into who I need to be able to do this. And then I become that person for moving forward. And that just was a way more accurate way of describing what I had done in these instances. So that was a huge one for me. Another one, I wouldn't say it's not like a phrase per se, but at an event, again, I think it was the same event as the first one. And it was, I remember who this was. It was Jen Spiegel from Becoming Iconic. And I don't remember exactly what was said, so please don't quote me on this. But it was just about like, don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and work hard in your business. And I think there's so much going around of like seamless businesses, passive income, all of this stuff. But it's like, it should be a little bit hard, at least a little bit hard. Like if you're not up for doing the hard work in your business, then it's probably not going to work, because these people who are just chasing like these quick businesses that they can just scale really quickly and then they don't have to do any work, I feel like that's not sustainable. And I feel like the sooner that you're willing to step in, roll up your sleeves and do the work, the better. So that was something that really resonated with me, because especially from the beginning, like you remember from the story, it was very scrappy. It was like listening to podcasts in the middle of the night while I was breastfeeding my kid. It was working part-time, being a new mom, and running a business. It's like you have to work hard. That's just part of it. And so that was very validating for me. And I think for a lot of other people who just see these easy quotation mark businesses online and wonder why that's not happening for themselves. It's because it's not how it's supposed to be. So that to me is some of the best business advice that I've heard. And the last one, what's one thing you'd tell your younger self starting out? I mean, I would say you're doing it right, because there was so many times from the very beginning that I was like, this isn't what so-and-so's doing. This isn't what I'm seeing online, but this is what feels right to me. And just, I would tell her that that's okay. Like that's what's going to build the business that's best for you. That's what's going to make you stand out, is if there are things that you're going to do differently and that you're going to do your own way. So that's what I would share. There is actually one more rapid fire question that I'm going to include for guests as well. But you'll have to tune in and find out what it is. I'm not gonna answer it this time around, but you're gonna have to tune in and see what it is, because it's a good one. Okay, that wraps up the first episode of the Unfiltered Tea with Evie. Thank you so much for being here. And go ahead and dive into the next one because I've got a few ready to go for you. So go ahead and hit play on the next one. And don't forget to reach out. All of the links for how you can get in touch with me are in the show notes. And I answer all my DMs myself. It's me on there. So if you want to reach out and say hi or what you thought of the first episode, go ahead and do that. I would love to hear from you. So that's it. And thank you for listening. I want to take a quick moment just to thank you so much for joining me in this space and just to encourage you that if there was anything that kind of sparked something for you or that you felt like somebody that you know maybe needed to hear, please feel free to share the episode. And if you are excited to hear more, go ahead and subscribe and listen to more of the episodes. I'm so excited that you're here and I can't wait to continue this journey with you.